My latest addiction is making paper beads. If you're interested in seeing how I make them, stay tuned. Hi everyone, it's Ann here. Welcome. For those of you who are new, who don't know, I'm Ann from the AnnMakes, and today's video I'm talking to you about paper beads. Yes, here's another video on YouTube about making paper beads. And what's different about this video, you are probably wondering, and why you should keep watching. Well, in this video, I'm hoping to share my tips and tricks for making paper beads. And hopefully that will be some useful information for someone out there. So, if you're interested in learning or knowing just my tips and tricks about making paper beads, then stick around. And if you like this video, please like it, please comment, share, and all that stuff. And if you're new here, please subscribe to the channel. And if you like this video, it really helps the algorithm on YouTube. YouTube is being really tough on us creators now, and the more likes, comments, shares, subscribe, all of that is helpful to help those of us who make videos on YouTube, because it's very hard to make any money off of YouTube, and the few pennies we do get, we are really dependent on this algorithm. So I really appreciate every like, thumbs up that I get. Okay, having said that, so why do I like to make paper beads, you may be wondering. I like making paper beads because they're so relaxing to me. They're so easy. They're a relaxing thing that I can do in the evenings. I can just zone out in front of the TV, and well, really it's more like watching Netflix and Prime these days than television, but yeah. And I just sit there and make these, and it's the evening goes by and I've made a bunch of them. And that's why I thought, well, I gotta share this with you. One of the good things about this paper bead addiction that I have is that it's using up magazine papers that otherwise I would just recycle. And so they're eco-friendly, these paper beads, because all they are repurposed or recycled magazines, flyers, and papers of any kind, really. So I've been making paper beads off and on for years. I just started making paper. I don't remember a time when I didn't know about paper beads, but I think I really got into making them more after seeing other YouTubers share their passion for making paper beads. And if you Google that, you'll see there's so many people who have YouTube videos about making paper beads. Some of my favorites, of course, are from the Frugal Crafter and Shannon Green and Jenny Belly. They have some great tutorials on how to make paper beads. And they really inspired me to give this a try again, and I haven't looked back really. So here's a box of paper beads that I've made. These are my most precious ones, my fancier ones. A lot of paper beads I've made, I've used in maybe junk journaling or art journaling. Here I can show you an example of some that I still have, that are on the spine of a junk journal I made. And yeah, and these were some of the first ones I made, so they're kind of small. And also on the string you can see there's other little beads, and these little beads are repurposed from some broken piece of jewelry. So that's one thing that I do with the beads. These beads can be made into jewelry also, and they're just great for making dangles on your journals, like I've already shown you here. I'm repeating myself, sorry, but yeah. So here are some of the beauties I've made over the years. I've made the traditional type of bead where you start with a strip of triangle, and I've made more like these tube beads with eyelets in the ends, so they could be more like those, kind of like those bracelets, those Pandora-like bracelets, but these are paper. And some I've really decorated and embellished. I made a lot of effort went into making them very special and pretty. Some have threads wrapped around them, others I've dipped the ends in like gold paint. I've already showed you some are, I have a whole bunch that I added eyelets in the ends to make them stronger. This one, as you can see, it's covered with a variety of beads and threads, and some of them are very, very shiny and sparkly. And some I have here, these are more the traditional beads, and these are they're just paper, and they are glazed. These may have been glazed with Mod Podge or varnish or even nail polish at some point. And oh, the ends, I did dip the ends in some, I think this is white, like a pearl nail polish, just to make the ends a little bit interesting. And I'm trying to see, over here I've kept some of my very first beads, my very first misfits. They are very, very tiny because I was just experimenting. I didn't know what I was doing, and I was basically wrapping paper around a toothpick, because that's how this all started. And these are some of the first ones that I made. They're very, very small. So with some searching on the internet and reading and all that, I learned that there are a zillion ways, maybe not a zillion, but there are many, many ways of making these paper beads. And you can even make some more. These have been more challenging for me to make, the little round ones, these little round ones. Oh, I have yet to master the technique for making these little round beads like this. That's tricky, but yeah, you can make them in all shapes. There's people who make them in different shapes. They're long, they're skinny, they're fat, they're short, some look like bicones, some look like cones. There's so many different ways of making them. So I right now am just having fun rolling them up into this and sticking them into a jar. And I don't know what I'll do with these, which way I'll finish them. I might put eyelets on them, I might glaze them, I might paint them, I might decorate them, I might leave them as is. I haven't decided yet, but I have a jar here of paper beads ready to go for the next time I'm inspired to use these somehow. And these ones are bead. In this box I have what I call my finished beads that are now ready to be used in projects. Any type of project that I want to use them in. Here, I'll leave this here. So the way I make my paper beads is I really like magazines. I subscribe to a few art magazines. I read a lot of magazines. It's just, I like having the paper in my hands and flipping through pages and reading. And I repurpose my magazines into all sorts of projects. I collect the images from them, the words. I collect pages and magazines for interesting backgrounds. And I have a lot of magazine pages that I find are colorful or interesting. I don't want to use them as a background. I'm not interested in using them as a collage image or something. But I think that they will make a pretty bead. So I store them in this poly envelope here. And I got this at the dollar store. So I collect pages that could be like this. This is a page with some makeup on it. And it's just, overall, it's super colorful. And I can see this becoming a whole bunch of pretty paper beads because you just need a strip of this. You can make it as wide or as thin as you want, and usually some people make them half an inch wide and some people make them an inch wide, and there are people who make them even wider than that. I tend to make them start at 1 inch. So this is how I end up with these beads. But something like this started out as something like this. So you may see this here. It's gonna look very different. You're just gonna see really the colors in the bead when you're done making it. So I collect these interesting to me pages that I'm not going to use for any other purpose in my collage or artwork because I think they're nice colors and they will make pretty beads. Like this is a page with food on it, but once you take a strip of this, if you just take a strip of this and you start rolling it, you can get some really pretty images. You can get some really pretty beads out of them. So that's what I do. So here's a selection of pages from magazines that I've put aside just for the sake of making beads because of the colors on here. Like, for example, this, I could probably show you some beads I've made with something like this. I think I have some here. Now see, like an ad like this ad here, I've made beads like that turned out like this. Sorry, my ring's backwards. With an ad that was similar to this one. I know it was a Kraft cheese ad. It might not have been with broccoli, but it was very similar to this. And I got these beads from that. And that's one example. Another example I might have for you is I have some things, it was similar to this. The colors were similar to this. And I got, I'm trying to find them there. I got these pretty beads that come out looking like they have stripes. So if you're interested in making paper beads, what I'm telling you is that you may want to look at the pages of magazines that you find not interesting in a different way, because when they are cut into strips and rolled, they look very different and it can be very interesting. So I have a pile of magazine pages that I keep in a folder for that purpose. Let me show you what else. Here's another example. This is a piece left from 2 magazine pages, and I'm not sure why this didn't make it into my triangle strips. Maybe I just forgot about it. But with this, I know I made a lot of beads that came out really, really pretty. I'll show you here. Oh, these beads came from the rest of this page. So to give you an idea of the transformation that you get from the page as is to rolled up triangles. So I go through phases of wanting to make paper beads. Now, after the last batch that I made that's in here, after the last batch that I made that is in this box here, I put away all my paper bead making stuff for several months, just because I didn't feel like making paper beads anymore. I moved on to something else. But a few days ago, I was like, I've wanted to make beads. I was just thinking, oh, I should make some beads. And I didn't have any strips, triangle strips, ready cut. So I cut a whole bunch, and that's basically how I do this. On some days that I'm feeling like I want to do something, but I don't want to do something that takes a lot of thinking, and I don't really know what I want to do, and I don't really want to start a very big project, I do these types of preparations, I call them make-ahead crafts in my room here. So I'm keeping myself busy, keeping my hands busy, and I am making supplies ahead of time for other projects. So I will sit down usually and take some pages from my envelope here and a paper trimmer, and this is the paper trimmer that I am using currently for my paper beads. And I will just cut and cut and cut and cut. I will take a few pages of magazine, and I'm just gonna take some pieces here that I have left over. Let's take this. Yes. I will take some magazine pages and I will cut triangle strips like this out of the pages. Now, to make I think the most popular type of paper bead that is shared out there on YouTube and social media are these beads that are made with a triangle. Now, the idea is that you start with a triangle that is about 1 inch or 3/4 or 1/2 inch at the base, depending on how wide you want your finished bead to be. And you draw, basically the idea is that you measure from the bottom of your paper, let's say 1 inch, and so you make a 1 inch mark, and you don't want to start directly from the side. To make your template, you want to start somewhere in the middle, and so you want to make a mark here and here to show this is the width, the base of your bead, the 1 inch. Now I'm making it 1 inch so it's easier to show on camera. And then you find the center of the 1 inch, at the top, and you join, so the center here of the 1 inch at the top, and you draw line the line, oopsie, from the top to the bottom, and you get a template like this. So these two sides are equal, and so you get an equal-sided triangle, and that can become your template. Now, my template is made from a frozen pizza box, the cardboard from a frozen pizza box, and it's longer than most magazine pages, and I did that on purpose because I wanted to have an extra bit so I could just make a hole in it and hang it. That's why it's so long. So, and if I happen to get any papers that are longer, this is perfect. But usually I'm using magazine pages. They tend to be 11 inches high, sometimes a little longer. So my template works for my beads. And that's my tip to you, is that make your own template for the type of papers you're going to be using to make your beads. There are people who just use scrapbooking paper to make paper beads, which is great. And I can do that too. I believe this will fit on a piece of scrapbook paper because of the length. I have a piece here of scrapbook paper. Okay, not counting the bar here, removing the bar, let's see. Yeah, oh yeah. See, my template here fits on a piece of scrapbook paper, whichever way. So, a lot of people use scrapbook paper, and a lot of people use magazine pages, and people use a combination. Magazine pages tend to be very thin, very flimsy, and scrapbook paper, some scrapbook paper and cardstock is very thick and will make for a thicker bead. But right now, I'm showing you what I'm doing with my magazines. So, I've taken a piece of magazine page, obviously from here, and I've drawn on the magazine page how I would start cutting my beads. Because when you start with a straight edge on a magazine page, let me show you, you will not get the right angles for your triangle, because you want to cut a triangle that does not have a right angle. You want it to have equal sides. So the first strip that is cut off of the magazine page is usually discarded. Now, I'm going to tell you right now, I do not throw out the wonky piece that comes off the first time. I still make a bead out of it. It looks a little wonky, but I don't care. So, because the first bead that can come off a magazine page will not be the full length of the page, and it's going to have a very straight side, and that will make a different type of bead from all your other beads. So that is why I draw on a piece of paper or magazine. This is just a magazine page that I've drawn on. I draw where the first strip would be cut, which was usually the discarded piece. Then flip over the template like this, and then I draw the second one. And then this is my guide, my cutting guide for cutting the rest of my beads. So I will come in, let me show you, with a magazine page. Now this one doesn't even have a straight edge. Okay, so let's put a straight edge on this piece here. Let's just straighten this out a little bit. It's not that bad, but we're just going to straighten this out for the sake of demonstration. All right. Now, let's say that this is a full magazine page with a straight edge. I've already made marks on it. I will line it up here. Find the mark that's here. Oops. Let's do it this way. Find the mark here. Okay. So I've marked the bottom of my magazine page with the bottom of this line here. And I know the top will end here. So I can cut this part off. I put the mark from the bottom here on the paper trimmer, right where the blade's gonna go. Right where, so I line it up here, right on the track where the blade will go. And this part, the top part, now remember this is the piece that will not be used to make beads unless you don't mind having a wonky bead. And I turn it slightly so the top, where's my mark? Yeah, my mark is here now. Will be on the track too. So it's at an angle. So here's, maybe it'd be easier if I show you on the white side. I'm going to show you on the white side. Let's do this again with a red pen. So I take my new magazine page, I line it up with the bottom, which is here, this mark here. I make a mark. I line up the rest of the paper with the top mark here, which is here. Okay? I should have made that. I should have put that like that, I think. Yeah. There. Okay. So I take this bottom here, I line it up with the cutting guide, the guide on the paper trimmer at the bottom here, put this right in the track, and turn this slightly, and you will turn the bottom a little bit to get this to line up here, because we're going to cut this part off. Okay, and then I close, and it moves. The first few times this will move and you will make wonky pieces, and that's okay. Practice on scrap paper, practice on magazine pages that you don't mind not using to make your beads. And then we just use the paper trimmer to cut the strip. Oops, and that didn't go very well. So for those of you who've never made videos, you can see that making videos is not very, it's not that easy. Okay, so this is the first piece you discard because it has a straight edge, and when you roll it up, it's not going to be symmetrical. All right, from then, so then to make your second cut, which will be actually the first bead that you will use, you line up the edge that you've cut with your line here. This is the first triangle, the second, the third triangle that you've drawn here. I just go to the third one. And line it up like this, and you want the point of the page to be right on the track at the very top here. Not here, but here. Okay. And it moves each time. I swear, because I'm filming this, it's not going to cooperate. So because of the way my paper trimmer works, it's easier. I find that I get better results pushing the blade from the bottom towards the top. And then, and hopefully it stays in place. You have to push down. And there we go. Now I have the right type of triangle to make my beads. Make my bead, I should say. Okay. To cut the next bead, I flip the page over. I again align it up there. I use the guide here of the third bead I've drawn. Make sure the top of the magazine page is on the track there where it will be cut. I move the blade to the bottom, and then I cut. Oh, this one's going to be off a bit. Oh, actually it came out perfect. When I think it's going to be perfect, it's off, and when I think it's going to be off, it's perfect. Okay, so here's another triangle. So I have two strips now to make my beads. So that is what I do. I just use this guide that I've made from my template, and I have to remember though to flip my page each time I cut it. And with practice, I'm able now to cut maybe 4 layers of magazine pages. Sometimes I'm not able to do 4 with accuracy, but usually 4 is my good number. So I can cut 4 strips, 4 triangles at a time. So it makes the cutting process faster. But that takes time to get the right type of triangles. There's a lot of trial and error. But since it's magazine pages or flyer or scrap paper that would be recycled anyway, it doesn't really matter. It's not precious. It's just paper. It's not, I didn't go out, I didn't buy this paper to do this. This is repurposing other types of paper. So I don't feel bad about it. So that's how I cut my triangles. Now, how I roll my beads, that is, I think, my own thing also. There are many tutorials out there that explain and show great ways to roll beads. The first way I learned to roll beads was basically using a toothpick. And it worked. It worked fine. I think I've shown you already at the beginning here some of the little beads I made very, very early on. I think this is one of my very first ones. It's a failed one, but I kept it anyway to show the progress. And yeah, these were made with toothpicks. Now, making beads on toothpicks is very possible. However, if you have any hand issues, I warn you, this will lead to cramping if you want to make a lot of them. But if you want to make a few beads and if you want to make just a few beads, you should be fine. But if you have no cramping issues and this is all you want to use, or this is all you have, go for it. All you do is you take your strip of paper. This is what I do. Put the toothpick over it. Fold like that. And then roll. Whoops. Now I find it hard to do this now because I'm used to my tool, but that's the idea. And you just roll and roll and roll, trying to keep it centered. So that's one way of doing it. So you just keep rolling it. And when you get to the end, you put a little dab of glue. Now, that is one way. Another way is to use a quilling tool. I have some quilling tools here. Some of these are pretty old. They were my mom's. You can use a quilling tool. And basically a quilling tool is a tool that has this metal piece here with a slot. I don't know if you can see. Oh, this one's kind of really separated. It has a slot there. See if I have another one here. Yeah. Paper quilling is also about rolling strips of paper. And these are quilling tools, but you can use these for your paper bead making. Here I have one that is battery operated, and it has a fun little tool here. And again, this is sold as a quilling tool, but can be used for paper beading. I eventually made my own tool. Oh yeah, this is the first one I made. I made a paper bead roller starting with a bobby pin, a hair fastener, a hair. What do you call these? Bobby pins, right? These are bobby pins. I actually cut off the round part. They had round tips with some wire cutters. And I repurposed, I think this was the handle of a paintbrush, and I had some of these pencil grips from when my kids were in school that I covered the... Okay, so this this is another day. I was interrupted during the filming of the previous part So I believe I was talking about the first tool that I made out of the handle of an old paintbrush, a hairpin, and some parts that I all sorts of bits, odds and ends from the house. I just always toss into a box. And this looks like it was the cap on the inside of a paint bottle or a glue bottle. And this metal thing, I'm not even sure. That looks like it came off like of an eyelet, a hoodie, a bag or something. And these foam pencil grips. So that's what this is made of. And I liked it because of the foam. It was a nice grip. And I like this part too, the rubbery part, this pencil grip. This came off of a mechanical pencil, I believe, that had the grippy thing on it. Anyway, it was just comfortable, and I put a bead on the end just so I wouldn't stab myself all the time with it, but I don't really need it. Anyway, so this was a tool I made for rolling the paper beads for a long time, and I was able to make longer beads because this is longer than, let's say, the quilling tools. You can see the difference in length. So I could make I could roll a longer bead on here and then push it off. And then I started with a hairpin because that's what I had. And I learned that some people were making their own tools and people selling their tools, and they were using a cotter pin. And I didn't have that at first, but I ordered cotter pins, and I can show you what I ordered exactly from Amazon, and this is what I got. And this is during the pandemic that I ordered this, and this is what, so I couldn't go to the store to shop for cotter pins and such, but I got this box, and there's 555 pieces. I don't remember how much I paid for this. I'll try to put a link to this exact product that I bought, and there's a lot of cotter pins in here, but I could use these and other things in my house and stuff, but I really have like a surplus now of cotter pins. And so a cotter pin, if you look at it, it has similar to the hairpin, but it doesn't have the round ends, but it has this split here. See where my nail is? It has a split, so that's perfect to put the paper, to grip the paper and then roll it. Now this part is round, and that's the part that needs to go in a handle of some sort. So, and cotter pins come in all different sizes. You have some really big ones and some small ones. So what I did to make the next tools I'm showing you, the next two tools I'm showing you here, is I used whatever I had that was lying around in my odds and ends box, and it could have been a tube like from an old pen, or I know I've used this type of paintbrush, this wooden piece, just the wooden piece, because this was finished. I had used a sponge brush so much the sponge had been discarded, but I had kept the piece of wood. And this one has a little hole in here because this part is actually on a plastic pin. So having something like that, I was able to put the cotter pin inside of it to wedge it in there and use a lot of glue to get it started, which is what I did with this hairpin. I did that. I wedged the hairpin into something and put glue and put other pieces on top. Then I improved my design. And what I did is I used some of these foam beads that I had left over from the kids' crafts. These I had purchased at the dollar store, Dollarama. I've seen these at Michael's too. They're beads. They're foam. They're made of foam. They're intended for kids to make jewelry and crafts with. And I had a lot of these. And what I did is that I had stuck this end of the cotter pin inside the handle of the paintbrush and added glue and used this part, the foam part, over that, onto that, and added more glue so it would be even more secure. So I did that, and this put lots of glue, and if the hole was bigger, because I used different things, I just stuffed in more foam or whatever, just to make it a nice tight grip for the pin so it wouldn't move, and glue. And then I proceeded to wrap the heck out of the handle part here, this handle, with layers and layers and layers of tissue paper and scrap paper. And I also put one of these beads at the very end. I think I did. I don't, yeah, I might have. I don't remember if I did or if I didn't. No. This one, no, actually I didn't. This is the one I made out of an old pen. This is the one I made out of the wooden handle, or a wooden handle. No, this one I made out of the wooden handle. This one I made out of another thing like this, tube or pen or whatever. Okay. So then I wrap many layers of tissue paper, and I basically used Mod Podge, so glazed the layers over and over until I've got a handle that I thought I had a good grip on. And to make this, I wanted a long cotter pin. I wanted a long space so I can make long beads, whether I want to make short beads or long beads. So I would have a better grip. It would be more ergonomic, more comfortable to hold in my hand. Also, I wanted beads with bigger holes because making paper beads with this or with a toothpick meant that my beads were going to have small holes, which is fine if you're going to string them. Because these were made on the toothpick, but it's almost the same as this. It makes for a small hole, but I wanted it to be bigger just because I am who I am. And so my idea was to use the bigger cotter pin so I could make bigger beads, and that's what happened. I ended up I started making these tubes, just tubes, these ones and these ones, the fatter ones. And I wanted to make Pandora style beads by adding eyelets in the ends. So using this cotter pin was giving me the perfect size beads, and this handle is really comfortable. And then I experimented with making even a wider bead by adding 2 cotter pins to a handle. And that gave me some even bigger beads, even fatter beads. And do I have, which ones do I have? I'm trying to find the beads I made with this. Yeah, so this gave me even some fatter beads that I didn't use eyelets, but then I painted the ends. So I've played with the different size holes of beads by using different tools. Now currently, the batch of beads that I am making and that I've made this video about and showing you my triangle strips. I am using this tool, which has 2 cotter pins, and it's giving me the beads, these beads, that are pretty big. And when I get to the end and slip off the bead, I put a little dab of glue at the end, and I get these beads. And I really like this size. It's very comfortable to make this size of bead. And I'm not sure if I'm going to add eyelets. I might add eyelets to some of them, and I might just paint some of them. I might varnish them and let them dry. I might add eyelets, and you can use different kinds of eyelets. Of course, my bag won't open now because I said that. There we go. Oh, this is a new bag. So you can get eyelets. These are really big, so these are for bigger ones. So to make beads like this, you need some eyelets. And eyelets come in all different sizes. And you could look at what you have in your stash. Maybe from your scrapbooking days, you may have some eyelets left over, but you just, you know, put the eyelets in there. And if your tube is a little too small, you just have to let it go a little bit to loosen up to get the right eyelet in there. I should add here that no tools are needed for rolling paper beads. You can use skewers, knitting needles, and other things. That is how I made my tools, and these feel really good in my hands. They're pretty comfortable. These 2 are my favorite now, and I like the beads that I make with this. So yeah, I'm happy with what I'm getting, the results I'm getting. This is making bigger beads now, and I'm very happy with it. And now that I have all these beads, next step will be to decide how I decorate and finish them. So at this point, I guess I should just show you how I actually roll one of these beads, these chubby beads that I have. I take, let's see if I have a pretty interesting strip here. Seems my prettier strips have all been used up to make the really pretty beads. This is not bad. Okay, so I take the triangle, and this is the side I want showing of the bead, let's say. Yeah, I don't know. This is going to be the outside part of the bead. So I slip it into the cotter pins like this and turn just so it's in there. I just put the edge in there, turn it, holding on a little tightly, and then I start slowly, making sure that I'm wrapping this kind of evenly. So the same width of paper is on each side, and I roll and roll like so. And when I get near the end, I take my glue and I put some glue on here, and I just, whoops, okay, I just kind of roll and smush down at the same time like that to get, and any excess glue I wipe onto the bead. It just helps to seal the papers in place. And I usually have like a little bowl beside me, and I'll have either a damp washcloth or a wipe, and I can clean my fingers off, clean the glue off my fingers, and then I can just pull the bead off my pin. And it looks a little flat at first, so I just give it a little squeeze like that to make it more round. And there you go. There's a little bead. And I just toss it in the jar with the other ones. And that's how I roll paper beads. I am using Aleene's tacky glue, Aleene's original tacky glue in a little bottle with a needle nose applicator. I use that, and the one I actually have in the kit that I use beside the couch is this. This is a little different bottle, but it's the same principle. It's just a white glue. This is an older bottle, but it's just some PVA glue, and I keep a pin in the needle part just to keep it from clogging. And yep, that keep it from clogging. That's what I do. So when I get to the final part of preparing the beads to turn them into something similar to these, I will glaze them, varnish them, seal them, usually with Mod Podge. My favorite Mod Podge to use for my beads is the glitter kind or the gloss kind. I really like using that, but I might use matte. I showed you the eyelets for my tube beads, and the other thing I like to do is also dip the ends in paint or sometimes nail polish to make nice little rounds, nice little round pieces. And I also like to wrap threads I like to use a lot of these metallic threads, and I've purchased these at the dollar store, Dollarama, here in Canada. I don't think that this is good thread for actual sewing, but it's great for putting around my beads, for decorating my little beads. And I like to wrap my beads with the thread and just use some Mod Podge to hold it in place. And I will add, like this one, I used extra glitter, or I just used, I and I use the glittery Mod Podge, I may glue on some little gems like I did on this one. Others, I'm trying to see if there's something else I've done different. Yeah, I've already, you know, some I will sprinkle more glitter on, or lots of glitter, and others I will just put a little bit. So this one has glitter, gems, and thread. So I just have a lot of fun with the decorating part. And yeah, and you can too. So I would really appreciate a like, a thumbs up, a comment, any questions. Share this video if you want to. Please watch it over and over again so my views go up on YouTube. Thank you so very much for being so patient. If you've stuck through this whole video, I know it's a long one. I really appreciate it. So thank you so much. And until next time, stay crafty. Bye.